Jake Morrison had been traveling through space for 3 years now, and he still could not get used to the smell of alien security checkpoints. This one, Station Chronos 7, smelled like burnt plastic mixed with whatever passed for anxiety pheromones among the insectoid species. Not pleasant. Not pleasant at all. He shuffled forward in line, his duffel bag slung over one shoulder, wearing a tank top because the station's climate control was set to surface of the sun as usual. His arms, chest, and back were covered in tattoos. Black ink, military style, nothing fancy. Each one meant something, but he doubted anyone here would ask. The security checkpoint was run by Officer Click, a mantis-looking alien whose species name Jake could not pronounce without dislocating his jaw. Click had that particular air of bureaucratic smugness that apparently transcended species barriers. Next to him bounced Gerbil, a gelatinous blob creature who served as his assistant and would not shut up. "Oh yes, yes, yes." Gerbil quivered enthusiastically as Jake approached. "You are going to love our new scanner. Top of the line. Reads organic markings, analyzes threat potential, cross-references with 14,000 databases. It is absolutely foolproof," Jake grunted. "Great. Please step into the scanning circle." Click clicked, his mandibles moving in what might have been the alien equivalent of a bored expression. Jake stepped forward. He had been through a million of these. They would scan him, maybe ask about the scar on his shoulder, stamp his travel docs, and he would be on his way to the bar in Terminal C. Simple. The scanner hummed to life, bathing him in blue light. Gerbil wiggled excitedly. "Now watch this. The system analyzes any permanent markings and determines their cultural significance and threat level. Tattoos, ritual scars, even certain fungal growths for some species." "Fascinating," Jake said flatly. The scanner's hum changed pitch. Then it started beeping. Then it started beeping faster. Then it started making a sound that no expensive piece of technology should ever make, which was somewhere between a wheeze and a scream. Click's antennae shot straight up. "What is happening?" Numbers began cascading across the holographic display above Jake's head. They were climbing. Fast. 100, 500, 2,000. The other aliens in line, a nervous bird-like merchant clutching his briefcase and a family of purple-skinned tourists, started backing away slowly. Gerbil said, which was probably the most intelligent thing he had said all day. "This is not normal." The numbers kept climbing. 5,000, 7,000, 9,000. Jake watched with detached interest. 10,000. The scanner made a sound like a robot having a stroke, sparked twice, and then the entire display flashed red before settling on a final message in big, angry letters. "Deceased enemies. 10,247. Station alarms began blaring. "Threat detected, threat detected, threat detected." Click stared at the display, then at Jake, then back at the display. "That is not possible. The system does not malfunction," Gerbil whimpered, already contradicting himself. "It is foolproof. You said so yourself." I said so myself. We said it. Someone said it." Jake sighed the sigh of a man who just wanted to get a beer and maybe a questionable station burrito. "Look, I can explain." "Security!" Click shrieked, hitting a button that made the alarms even louder, which Jake had not thought was possible. "We have a Category 12 threat. Possibly Category 13. I do not even know what category this is." 6 more security officers swarmed out of nowhere, weapons drawn but shaking noticeably. The tourist family had straight up abandoned their luggage and fled. The bird merchant was trying to hide behind a trash can despite being roughly 4 times its size. Jake raised his hands slowly. "In my defense," your scanner asked. Within 30 seconds, Jake found himself surrounded by a dozen alien security officers, all pointing weapons at him with varying degrees of competence. One of them, a squat toad-like creature, was holding his plasma rifle upside down. Jake chose not to mention it. "Do not move, human," Click commanded, his voice cracking slightly. "You are under arrest for being a threat to galactic peace and, extreme violence and, Gerbil, what is the regulation for this?" Gerbil was frantically scrolling through a data pad, his gelatinous body rippling with panic. "There is no regulation for this. The highest threat assessment we have on file is 312 deceased enemies, and that was a Korgath war chief who unified 7 clans through ritual combat over 40 years. This human has, significantly exceeded that number. It was my job," Jake said tiredly. "Can I at least put my arms down? I have a connecting flight in 2 hours." "Connecting flight?" Click's mandibles clattered in what might have been laughter or a seizure. "You are not going anywhere. You are a walking extinction event. How does one being even kill 10,000 other beings? Well, technically, not all of those were direct kills. Jake started, then realized he was not helping his case. Look, can we just reboot the scanner? Maybe it miscounted. Maybe it picked up someone else's tattoos. Maybe there is a glitch. Gerbil oozed over to the scanner and poked it nervously. The display flickered, recalculated, and updated to 10,248. Everyone stared at it. Did it just go up? The upside-down rifle guard asked. I think it is counting retroactively. Gerbil whimpered. It found another one in the database. That was probably Henderson, Jake muttered. Guy died 3 months after I left. Training accident. Not really my fault, but I might have taught him the technique that failed. So yeah, that is fair. Click made a sound like a tea kettle about to explode. You are talking about this very casually. Because it is casual. I was a soldier. Soldiers fight wars. Wars have casualties. This is not complicated. Who were you at war with? Gerbil asked, his voice small and frightened. The Vexians? The Chromath Empire? The Hive Collective? We would have heard about a conflict with that many casualties. Other humans, Jake said. The entire security team froze. Other humans, Click repeated slowly. You fought your own species. Multiple times. Different wars. Earth has a lot of countries, and we have not always gotten along great. That is insane, the Toad Guard said, finally noticing his rifle was upside down and correcting it. Why would you fight each other when you could be fighting, I do not know, literally anyone else? Jake shrugged. Politics, resources, religion, the usual stuff. The usual stuff. Gerbil echoed faintly. He says it is the usual stuff. Pip, the bird-like merchant who had been hiding behind the trash can, suddenly perked up. Wait. I know you. You are that human from the bar on Nexus Station. You helped me when those Rigelian debt collectors were harassing me. You were very polite. Yeah, that sounds like something I would do, Jake said. But you killed 10,000 beings, Pip said, confused. Not that day I didn't. That day I just bought you a drink and told those guys to leave you alone. And they did leave me alone, very quickly, while screaming. Pip tilted his head. Now I understand why. Click's antennae were twitching erratically. Take him to interrogation room 3. Commander Voss will want to handle this personally. And someone fix the scanner before it starts a panic. The last thing we need is this number showing up on the public displays. As 4 guards escorted Jake away, weapons still drawn but hands still shaking, he heard Gerbil whisper to Click, "Do you think all humans are like this?" Click's response was barely audible but deeply disturbed. "I hope not. For all our sakes, I really hope not." Jake sighed again. He was definitely going to miss his connecting flight, and Terminal C had the good burritos, the ones with actual meat instead of synthesized protein paste. This day was really not going his way. Interrogation room 3 was aggressively beige. Beige walls, beige table, beige chairs that were clearly not designed for human anatomy. Jake sat in one, trying to find a position that did not make his lower back scream in protest, while the guards stood by the door looking like they were ready to bolt at any second. The door hissed open and in strutted Commander Voss. Voss was a Saurian, which meant he looked like someone had taken a velociraptor, taught it to walk fully upright, given it a military uniform, and then inflated its ego to roughly the size of a small moon. His scales were a deep purple, polished to a gleaming shine, and his uniform had so many medals and commendations pinned to it that Jake was genuinely concerned about the weight distribution. "So," Voss said, his voice dripping with theatrical authority, "you are the human." "One of them, yeah," Jake replied. Voss circled the table slowly, his clawed feet clicking on the floor. "Do you know how many beings I have personally neutralized in my 15 years of service to the Galactic Security Force? I'm going to guess less than 10,000. 0. Voss announced proudly. 0. Because I am a professional. Because I use diplomacy, negotiation, and tactical de-escalation. Violence is the refuge of the incompetent." Jake blinked. "You are a security commander who has never been in a fight?" "I have been in hundreds of tense situations that I resolved without violence," Voss corrected, puffing out his chest. "Just last cycle, I talked down a very angry merchant who was upset about import tariffs. Not a single scale was harmed." "Wow. Intense." Voss slammed his claws on the table, which made the guards flinch but did not particularly impress Jake. "Do not mock me, human. You are in serious trouble. 10,248 confirmed kills. That makes you either a war criminal, an assassin, or some kind of biological weapon. So which is it? Veteran, Jake said. Just a regular military veteran. There is nothing regular about those numbers. Look, I served 20 years. Started when I was 18. Infantry, special operations, couple of classified gigs I probably should not talk about. Earth does not mess around when it comes to war. We have been doing it for thousands of years. We are really, really good at it. Voss stared at him. You fought other humans. Yep. Why? Lots of reasons. My country needed soldiers. I needed a job. Seemed like a good idea at the time. But why were you fighting each other? Voss leaned forward, genuinely baffled. Humans are all the same species. You share a planet. You share biology. Why would you wage war on your own kind? Jake rubbed his temples. Okay, so there are different countries on Earth, right? And sometimes those countries disagree about stuff. Territory, resources, ideology, who has the better economic system, that kind of thing. And when diplomacy fails, sometimes it gets violent. That is barbaric. Yeah, well, we did not have the luxury of a galactic council telling us to play nice. We figured things out the hard way. Voss's eyes narrowed. And these tattoos, each one represents a kill? Each one represents something. A mission, a unit, a battle. Some are memorial pieces for friends I lost. Some are definitely kill counts, yeah. It was tradition in my unit. You memorialize the beings you killed on your own body? We memorialize a lot of things. Humans are sentimental like that. One of the guards, a crystalline being that refracted light in nervous patterns, spoke up quietly. Commander, perhaps we should verify his story before we proceed. This could be a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, Voss repeated incredulously. The scanner does not misunderstand. It reads biological markers and cross-references them with cultural databases. If it says 10,000, then it is 10,000. Actually, Jake interjected, your scanner probably read my tattoos and then accessed Earth's military records to figure out what they meant, which means it pulled my service record, which means you can verify everything I am saying right now instead of assuming I am a space serial killer. Voss's tail twitched in irritation. Fine. Guard, retrieve the human's military records from Earth's database. The crystalline guard tapped on a datapad, his facets flickering. Accessing now, Commander. This may take a moment. Earth's record-keeping systems are apparently very primitive and organized by something called social security numbers. Of course they are, Voss muttered. Jake leaned back in his uncomfortable chair. While we are waiting, can someone get me some water? Your station is hotter than a combat zone in summer, and I have been standing in that scanner for 20 minutes. You are not in a position to make requests, Voss snapped. I am also not actually under arrest for anything illegal. I am just a guy with tattoos trying to catch a flight. You are a potential threat to every being on this station, only if you make me miss my connection. Those terminal sea burritos are the only thing keeping me civil right now. Voss looked like he wanted to argue, but the crystalline guard suddenly made a chiming noise. Commander, the records are in. You should see this. The crystalline guard's facets dimmed nervously as he read from the datapad. So, according to Earth military records, Jake Morrison, Service number 274559321, enlisted at age 18 in the United States Marine Corps. Multiple tours of duty in conflicts across Earth. Infantry specialist, advanced reconnaissance, close quarters combat instructor, demolitions expert, and, oh, this is interesting, certified in something called urban pacification. That sounds bad, Voss said suspiciously. It is exactly what it sounds like, Jake confirmed. The guard continued scrolling. He has decorations for valor, medals for, exceptional courage under fire, commendations for saving civilian lives during an extraction operation, and a Purple Heart, which I am reading here means he was wounded in combat and kept fighting anyway. Of course he did, one of the other guards muttered. Wait, there is more. He also has a dishonorable discharge. Voss's head snapped up. Dishonorable, so he is a criminal. Let me guess, Jake said flatly. It says I punched a superior officer. The guard's facets flickered in confirmation. Yes. It says you, quote, struck a commanding officer in the face after said officer ordered your unit to abandon wounded civilians during an evacuation. You refused the order, completed the evacuation yourself, and then punched the officer when he threatened you with court-martial. He deserved it, Jake said without a hint of regret. Guy was a coward and those civilians would have died. So you assaulted your own commander, Voss said, as if this proved his point. I saved 17 people and punched one idiot. I would make the same choice again. The guard kept reading, his voice getting progressively more nervous. It also says here that despite the dishonorable discharge, several ranking officers wrote letters of recommendation for him. One of them says, and I quote, "This soldier represents the best and worst of human nature, uncompromising in his principles and terrifying in his competence." That was Colonel Reeves, Jake said with a slight smile. Good guy. Little dramatic, but good guy. Goebel, who had oozed into the room at some point during the interrogation, quivered nervously. So he is telling the truth? All of this is legitimate military service? Apparently, the guard confirmed. His record shows deployments in 6 different conflict zones, participation in over 200 combat operations, and a confirmed enemy combatant count of, well, it does not give an exact number, but it does say his unit was responsible for. Oh my stars. Why would they even track this? How bad is it? Voss demanded. His unit alone was credited with neutralizing an entire enemy battalion in a 3-day engagement. That is roughly 800 hostiles. The room went very quiet. In 3 days, Goebel whispered. It was a bad week, Jake offered. Pip, the bird-like merchant, had somehow talked his way into the interrogation room and was watching from the doorway. I told you he helped me with my debt collector problem. Very polite about it, too. Did not even raise his voice. Those guys were amateurs, Jake said. Barely qualified as a problem. They had plasma weapons, Pip said. So? Voss was staring at the datapad like it had personally betrayed him. This cannot be standard for human military personnel. Surely he is an outlier. An exception. The crystalline guard scrolled further. Actually, Commander, according to this, his numbers are above average, but not exceptionally so. There are humans with significantly higher confirmed counts. There is a human sniper with over 11,000 confirmed long-range eliminations. There is a pilot with, oh no, this cannot be right, 43,000 enemy combatants neutralized over a 30-year career. 43,000? Voss's voice cracked. Bombers have high numbers, Jake explained. You drop ordnance on enemy positions, those numbers add up quick. How is your species not extinct? Goebel asked, genuinely horrified. If you fight each other this efficiently, how are there any humans left? We breed fast and we are stubborn, Jake said. Also, we invented medicine, and agriculture, and antibiotics. Turns out when you are not trying to kill each other, humans are pretty good at surviving. Voss sat down heavily in the other beige chair, looking like someone had just explained to him that the universe was made of cheese and he was lactose intolerant. So you are just a normal human soldier. Yep, and there are millions of you. Billions, actually. Not all soldiers, obviously, but yeah, there are about 8 billion humans last time I checked. 8 billion beings this capable of violence, Voss said faintly. Also capable of music, art, cooking, engineering, medicine, comedy, and making really good coffee, Jake added. We are multifaceted. The door suddenly burst open and a panicked junior officer, some kind of amphibian species, skidded into the room. Commander, we have a situation. Pirates are boarding the station. Captain Razor and his crew. They have breached Docking Bay 5 and are heading toward the central hub. Every guard in the room immediately tensed up, their earlier nervousness about Jake now replaced with absolute terror about an actual threat. Voss stood up, his scales somehow losing some of their luster. Pirates. Actual pirates. Here. Now. Yes, sir. They are demanding access to the trade vault and threatening to execute hostages if we do not comply. Jake raised an eyebrow. You guys get a lot of pirate attacks? This is only my second one, Voss admitted, his voice shaking slightly. The first one ended when they took what they wanted and left. So you just let them rob you? It is standard protocol to avoid casualties. Pip suddenly squawked from the doorway. Wait, Captain Razor? That is the crew that robbed my shipment last month. They took everything and left me stranded on a mining colony for 2 weeks. Jake looked at Voss. You got a plan? I am going to negotiate with them, Voss said, though he did not sound confident about it. Yeah, that is not going to work. The sound of plasma fire echoed through the station's corridors, followed by screaming. Not the fun kind of screaming either. The oh no, we are all going to die kind. Voss's scales had gone from polished purple to a pale lavender that suggested his cardiovascular system was having second thoughts about this whole commander thing. We need to evacuate this sector and establish a defensive perimeter. You need to do something faster than that, Jake said, standing up from his terrible chair. How many pirates are we talking about? The amphibian officer checked his datapad with shaking hands. Sensors show 12 hostiles, all armed with military-grade weapons. Captain Razor is a Krell, heavily augmented, wanted in 6 systems for armed robbery and murder. 12 guys. That's it? That is 12 armed and violent criminals, Voss snapped, though his voice cracked halfway through. Another explosion rocked the station. Closer this time. The lights flickered. Jake sighed the sigh of a man who had been through this exact scenario too many times to count. Okay, here is a proposal. You let me go handle this, and in exchange, you let me catch my flight. Deal? Voss stared at him. You want to fight 12 pirates? Alone. I mean, if any of your guys want to help, they are welcome to tag along. But judging by how everyone in this room looks right now, I am guessing that is a no. The guards all found very interesting things to look at on the ceiling. This is insane, Voss said. You are one being. Yeah, but I am a human, and according to your fancy scanner, I am pretty good at this whole violence thing. So, do we have a deal, or are you going to negotiate while Razor executes hostages? More screaming echoed through the corridor. Someone was shouting about the vault codes. Someone else was crying. Voss's tail twitched frantically. If you die, this is not on me. If I die, I will be too dead to care. Do I get my gear back? The crystalline guard quickly retrieved Jake's duffel bag from the evidence locker. Jake unzipped it, pulling out a few items that made all the guards take a collective step backward. A tactical knife, a compact pistol that looked primitive by galactic standards but very well maintained, and a worn jacket with 35%, patches from a dozen different military operations. You brought weapons to a civilian station, Voss said weakly. You're welcome, Jake replied, shrugging on the jacket. Where are they right now? Central hub, near the trade vault, the amphibian officer said. They have barricaded themselves in with approximately 30 hostages. Any civilians in the crossfire between here and there? The corridors have been evacuated. Everyone is hiding in their quarters or shops. Good. Stay here. This will be quick. Jake walked toward the door. Pip suddenly fluttered in front of him. Wait, you are really going to fight them? All of them? Yep. Why? You do not even know these people. You are just passing through. Jake paused, considering the question. Because they are scaring people. Because Razor robbed you and probably deserves a punch in the face. And because if I do not, Voss over there is going to try negotiating and someone is going to die while he is busy talking about de-escalation protocols. That is very heroic, Pip said quietly. Nah, it is just Tuesday. Jake walked out of the interrogation room and into the corridor. Behind him, he heard Gerbil whisper to Click, Should we follow him? Absolutely not, Click replied, but we should watch the security feeds. 4 minutes and 30 seconds later, Jake returned to interrogation room 3. He was dragging Captain Razor by one of his cybernetic arms. Razor was a massive Krell, built like a tank with scales like armor plating and augmented limbs that probably cost more than a small spacecraft. He was also unconscious, bleeding from several places, and missing one of his fancy robot arms. Jake dropped him on the floor of the interrogation room with a heavy thud. The guards all stared. Voss stared. Pip stared. Gerbil actually stopped jiggling for a moment, which might have been the first time he had ever been completely still. Done, Jake said, dusting off his hands. The rest of his crew are running. Back to their ship right now. I suggest you lock down the docking bay before they escape, but honestly, I do not think they are going to try anything again. They seem pretty motivated to leave. Voss started, then stopped. In 4 minutes, 12 pirates. 11. Razor here makes 12, but he was the only one dumb enough to actually try fighting. The others took one look at him going down and decided they had better things to do. The crystalline guard was frantically checking the security feeds on his datapad. Commander, he is telling the truth. The hostages are safe. 3 pirates are being treated for injuries in the medical bay. The rest fled to their ship. Captain Razor is, well, right here. Jake pointed at the unconscious pirate. You are going to want to restrain him before he wakes up. He is going to be very cranky. Voss opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No sound came out. So, Jake said, checking his watch. About that connecting flight. Am I free to go, or are we still doing the whole potential threat thing? The silence in interrogation room 3 stretched out like taffy, broken only by Captain Razor's unconscious groaning and the distant sound of the pirate ship's engines firing up in a very hasty retreat. Voss finally found his voice, though it came out about 3 octaves higher than normal. How did you even… Training, Jake said simply. Also, Razor telegraphs his punches like he is sending a formal invitation. Big guys always do. They rely on strength and intimidation, but if you know what you are doing, size does not matter as much as people think. Goebel oozed forward cautiously, staring at the fallen pirate captain. But he has military-grade cybernetic enhancements, reinforced skeletal structure, combat stimulants. He should have been nearly impossible to defeat in hand-to-hand combat. Yeah, he had all that, Jake agreed. But he also had terrible footwork and zero experience fighting. Someone who actually knew what they were doing. Most pirates are bullies. They are great at scaring unarmed civilians and terrible at dealing with actual resistance. You hit them hard enough, fast enough, in the right places, and they go down just like anyone else. The crystalline guard was still reviewing the security footage, his facets flickering in disbelief. Commander, you need to see this. The human did not even use his weapon. He used environmental objects. A cargo container, a loose support beam. He threw one pirate into two others like they were bowling pins. Improvisation, Jake explained. Another thing humans are good at. When you grow up fighting wars with limited resources, you learn to use whatever is available. Pip had fluttered over to the security monitor and was watching the footage with wide eyes. That move where you used the support beam as a lever to flip the large one over. That was beautiful. Very economical. No wasted motion. Appreciate it, Jake said. Voss was pacing now, his claws clicking frantically on the floor, his tail whipping back and forth. This does not make sense. You should not have been able to do that. One being against 12 armed hostiles. The tactical algorithms say it is impossible. Your tactical algorithms never met a human marine, Jake replied. Look, Commander, I get it. In your experience, violence is rare. Most species in the Galactic Council evolved past large-scale conflict before they reached space travel. You developed diplomacy first, weapons second. Humans did it backward. We have been perfecting the art of killing each other for millennia. It is not something we are proud of, but it is what we are good at. That is terrifying, the amphibian officer said quietly. Yeah, well, it is also useful sometimes. Like today. Click had been standing in the corner, his mandibles working nervously. Commander Voss, I think we need to update our security protocols. Immediately. This human just did what our entire security team could not do, and he did it in less than 5 minutes. What does that say about our preparedness? Voss stopped pacing and turned to face Jake. For the first time since the interrogation started, his expression was not one of suspicion or fear, but something closer to grudging respect. You saved 37 lives today. The hostages. Station personnel who would have been caught in crossfire if this had escalated. You did what I could not do. You could have done it, Jake said, surprising everyone. You just were not trained for it. That is not a character flaw. That is just circumstances. Your species did not need to develop those skills. Mine did. Does not make me better than you. Just different. That is very diplomatic for someone who just dismantled 12 pirates, Pip observed. I contain multitudes, Jake said dryly. Voss straightened up, some of his earlier confidence returning. Officer Click, update the biometric scanner database. Create a new category for human military veterans. Classification level. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. Flag all humans with military service records for expedited processing. Yes, Commander. Click clicked, already working on his datapad. Voss turned back to Jake. You are free to go. Obviously. And I apologize for the detention. In hindsight, we may have overreacted. May have. Jake raised an eyebrow. We definitely overreacted, Voss corrected. However, I would like to offer you a position as a security consultant for Station Kronos 7. We clearly need someone with your expertise to train our forces in, actual combat scenarios. Jake was already shaking his head before Voss finished. No thanks. I did my time. 20 years of military service was enough. Now I just travel, take odd jobs, try to stay out of trouble. This whole thing, he gestured at the unconscious pirate, was already more excitement than I wanted today. I could offer you an extremely generous salary. Voss pressed. I could offer you some advice for free instead. Hire some human veterans. There are plenty of us floating around the galaxy now, looking for work. We are generally reliable. We know how to follow orders when they make sense. And we are very good at keeping people safe. Just make sure you hire the ones with honorable discharges. The dishonorable ones like me are trouble. You punched one officer who deserved it, Voss said. That hardly makes you trouble. You have not seen my full file. That was just the incident that got me discharged. There were other situations. Many other situations. Gerbil quivered nervously. Should we be concerned about those situations? Only if you plan on abandoning civilians to die or being generally incompetent in a life-threatening situation. Then yeah, you should be very concerned. The guards all quietly made mental notes to never do either of those things. Jake picked up his duffel bag and slung it over his shoulder. So we are good? I can catch my flight? Because Terminal C stops serving the good burritos in 40 minutes and I have been thinking about them for 3 hours. Yes, you are cleared for departure, Voss said. He hesitated, then extended his clawed hand in the human gesture of a handshake. Thank you, genuinely. You did not have to help us. Jake shook his hand, careful not to grip too hard. You are welcome. Try to stay safe, Commander, and maybe invest in some better training programs. As Jake walked toward the door, Pip called out, Will we see you again? If you come through Kronos 7? Maybe, Jake said. I do pass through here every few months. The burritos are worth the trip. I will buy you one, Pip offered. As thanks. For helping me today. And that time on Nexus Station. Deal. I will hold you to that. Jake made it 3 steps into the corridor before Gerbil's voice echoed after him. Human Jake, can I ask one more question? Jake turned back. Shoot. You said you are one of the nice ones. When you were leaving earlier. What did you mean by that? Jake's expression went carefully neutral. I mean that I left the military. I travel peacefully. I only fight when people give me no choice. There are other humans out there who did not stop, who liked the work too much, who are still looking for fights. Those ones? He paused. Those ones you do not want to meet. The implications of that statement settled over the room like a heavy blanket. How many of those are there? Click asked nervously. Enough that you should really update those security protocols, Jake said, and maybe start checking human passengers a little more carefully. Not all of us are just passing through looking for burritos. With that, Jake Morrison, veteran of too many wars, bearer of 10,248 memorial tattoos, and the man who had just casually dismantled a pirate crew in under 5 minutes, walked out of the security checkpoint and headed toward Terminal C. Behind him, Officer Click pulled up the scanner interface and stared at the new category he had just created. Human veteran, extreme caution, expedite processing, do not engage. Gerbil looked over his shoulder. Do you think we should add anything else to that warning? Click's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Maybe a note that says, offer them food, stay polite, and whatever you do not threaten their connecting flights. That seems wise, Gerbil agreed. On the security monitor, they watched Jake disappear into Terminal C. A few minutes later, he emerged with 2 burritos, a satisfied expression, and headed toward his gate. Voss watched the monitor as well, his scales slowly returning to their normal purple. We are going to need to completely revise our threat assessment protocols. Everything we thought we knew about combat capability just went out the airlock. Should we inform the Galactic Council? The amphibian officer asked. And tell them what? That humans are terrifyingly efficient at violence but mostly just want to eat burritos and be left alone? They already know. They have been very carefully not talking about it for years. Voss turned away from the monitor. Get me the human embassy. I want to hire 5 security consultants by the end of the week, preferably ones who will actually train our people instead of just doing everything themselves. Yes, Commander. As the security team dispersed to handle the aftermath of the pirate attack and the unconscious Captain Razor, Pip remained in the doorway, watching the monitor. Gerbil, he said quietly. Do you think there are many humans like Jake in the galaxy? Gerbil jiggled uncertainly. I hope not, for everyone's sake. I hope there are, Pip said. If there are going to be pirates and criminals out here, it is good to know there are also humans like him, the nice ones who only fight when they have to. On the monitor, Jake's ship undocked from the station, its engines flaring as it jumped to hyperspace, carrying its dangerous, polite, and burrito-satisfied passenger to whatever came next. And in the security database of Station Kronos 7, a new protocol was filed, one that would eventually spread to every station and port in the Galactic Council. When encountering human veterans, remember, they are not looking for trouble. But if trouble finds them, get out of the way and let them work. Then buy them food. They appreciate that. Beneath that, in smaller text, someone had added, seriously, they really like food. It helps,